The year was 2187 when everything changed for humanity. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Earth ship called Horizon. He stared at the glowing message floating in the air before him. His hands gripped the railing tightly as he read the words for the third time. Lieutenant Amy Brooks worked quickly at her station nearby. Her fingers moved fast across the controls as she checked the message again and again. She looked up at Jake with wide eyes. "Captain, this is real," she said. Her voice shook a little with excitement. "The signal came from a place 40 light-years away. We have never seen anything like this before." Jake nodded slowly. The message was simple but powerful. Someone out there among the stars wanted to meet humanity. They called themselves the Galactic Council. They said over 300 different alien races belonged to their group. And now they wanted Earth to join them as observers. "What should we do?" Amy asked. "We tell Earth," Jake said firmly. "This changes everything." Within hours, every leader on Earth knew about the message. President Linda Hayes spoke to the whole world from the United Nations building. Her voice was calm, but everyone could hear the emotion behind her words. Humanity was not alone in the universe, and now someone wanted to talk to them. The leaders chose Ambassador Kevin Price to lead the mission. Kevin was an older man with gray hair and sharp eyes. He had spent his whole life preparing for this moment, even though many people thought aliens would never come. Now he had to represent all of humanity to creatures from the stars. The journey took 3 weeks. The Horizon flew faster than light using humanity's newest engine. When they finally saw the council headquarters, every person on the ship stopped what they were doing. They just stared out the windows in complete silence. The station was bigger than Earth's moon. Thousands of ships came and went from its many docking ports. Each ship looked different. Some were made of metal. Others seemed to be made of crystal or light itself. It was like watching a city in space, but more alive than any city on Earth. Kevin stood next to Jake at the window. With them were 2 other important people. Dr. Helen Carter was a scientist who studied alien life, even though she had never seen a real alien before today. Commander Greg Palmer was in charge of keeping everyone safe. Both of them looked amazed and a little scared. "Remember," Kevin said quietly to his team, "we are here to watch and learn. How we act today might decide what happens to Earth for the next 1,000 years." When the Horizon docked at the station, an alien came to meet them. It was tall and seemed to be made of clear crystal that sparkled with inner light. The alien's voice sounded like music when it spoke through a device that turned its words into English. "Welcome, humans. I am Counselor Varen of the Cristari Collective. The Council has waited a long time to meet you. There is much you need to know about the universe you have just entered." Helen leaned close to Kevin and whispered, "Did you hear that? It said they were waiting for us. Not that they found us waiting." The group followed Varen through the station. The hallways seemed to change as they walked. Pictures and information from hundreds of worlds appeared on the walls around them. It was beautiful and overwhelming at the same time. Finally, they reached a huge chamber where the council met. The room was enormous. Platforms rose in a spiral pattern toward the center. On each platform sat representatives from different alien species. Some looked almost human. Others were so strange that the humans could not figure out what they were looking at. There were beings made of light, creatures covered in metal, and things that seemed to be alive clouds of gas. Viren led them to a special platform made just for observers. "You cannot speak in council meetings during your first visit," Varen explained. "But you will see important things today. The council is meeting to talk about the Forbidden Zones." "Forbidden Zones?" Greg asked. His voice was tense. As security chief, anything called forbidden made him worried. "Places in space where no one is allowed to go," Varen answered. "Even the council does not fully understand what is in those zones. But today we discuss making those zones bigger." The meeting started. The humans watched as aliens from across the galaxy talked to each other. Technology turned all their different languages into words everyone could understand. The discussions were fascinating, but then something happened that made the room go quiet. An old alien race called the Archivists took the floor. The Archivist looked like pure energy trapped inside a shape made of light. When it spoke, everyone listened carefully. "Council members," the Archivist said in a serious voice, "we have found another strange reading near Forbidden Zone 7. The readings match those from the Vanishing." Fear and concern spread through the room. Kevin turned to Varen quickly. "What is the Vanishing?" Varen's crystal body seemed to get darker. 20,000 years ago, an entire civilization disappeared in one night. 1 billion people gone without any warning. All that was left were their empty cities and one message. The message said, "We have been invited deeper." Since that day, 5 more civilizations have vanished the same way. Helen's face went pale. And no one knows why? No, Varen said simply. It is the biggest mystery in the known universe. And humans, with your curious minds and your need to explore, must understand this danger. Some mysteries should not be solved. The meeting continued for hours. Jake noticed something strange. Whenever anyone mentioned humanity, certain aliens looked at each other in a knowing way. There was a pattern here. The humans were missing something important. When the meeting finally ended, Kevin went straight to Varen. "Counselor, thank you for the warning about these forbidden zones. But I feel like there is more to why humanity was invited here. Why now? Why after all these years?" Varen stayed quiet for a long moment. The silence felt heavy. Finally, the alien spoke again. "Ambassador Price, there is a reason your species has been watched carefully. Your planet circles a star that was once part of a group of stars visited by the last species to vanish. Before they disappeared, they left behind coordinates and a message. Those coordinates point to a place in your solar system. The message says the inheritors will come from the blue world." The words hit the humans like a physical blow. Helen grabbed Kevin's arm hard. "Are you saying humanity is connected to these disappearances?" "We do not know for certain," Varen admitted. "But the Council does not believe in such big coincidences. You were invited here not just to join us. We need to understand what part humanity might play in solving this mystery, or perhaps in becoming the next chapter of it." That night, the human team returned to their rooms on the station. No one could sleep. They had come to the stars looking for friendship and knowledge. Instead, they learned that humanity might be connected to the universe's greatest mystery. A mystery that had made 6 entire civilizations vanish without a trace. Jake stood at the window of his room looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there was a danger that even advanced aliens feared, and somehow Earth was part of it. He did not know if humanity was meant to solve this mystery or fall victim to it, but he knew one thing for certain. Nothing would ever be the same again. The journey back to Earth took 2 weeks. The Council had given humanity access to better faster-than-light engines. Ambassador Kevin Price spent most of the trip writing his report. He knew his words would change human history forever. When the Horizon arrived at Earth, they docked at Gateway Station in orbit. Within hours, Kevin stood before the emergency meeting of the United Earth Assembly. Every nation's leader watched through secure video connections. The room was silent as they waited to hear what he had learned. "The truth is this," Kevin said clearly. "We are not just joining a community of alien civilizations. We have become part of a mystery that threatens every thinking being in the universe." He told them everything. The signal. The 6 vanished civilizations. The ancient station that marked Earth as important. When he finished, no one spoke for a long moment. President Linda Hayes broke the silence first. "Ambassador Price, are you saying our world is somehow at the center of a cosmic event that makes civilizations disappear?" "Not the center, Madam President, but definitely connected. The evidence shows the signal has traveled across the galaxy for millions of years, and Earth is on its path." Dr. Helen Carter stepped forward to the display screens. "With your permission, I want to show you what we discovered about the signal Earth received 3 months ago." She brought up data from the Deep Space Station. "At first, this looks like random radiation from dying stars. But when you use advanced mathematics, patterns appear." The display changed. Layers of hidden complexity emerged from what looked like noise. Even people who were not scientists could see it was clearly a message. Clearly made by intelligence. "I spent 2 weeks studying this," Helen continued. "The signal is not just an invitation. It is a test. Hidden inside are instructions for technologies hundreds of years beyond what we can build now. Unlimited energy. Transfer of consciousness. Control of basic forces of nature. Anyone who fully decodes this gains knowledge that would make them like gods." Worried voices filled the room. Commander Greg Palmer spoke up. "Then it is not just inviting us to change. It is offering power. That changes everything." "Yes," Kevin agreed. "Now we understand the temptation. Imagine being a civilization thousands of years old. You have solved every problem you can solve. You are stagnant. Then you receive proof there is another level of existence and tools to reach it. The Elthari and the others did not run away. They graduated to something new." Amy Brooks, who had been quiet until now, raised her hand. "But why has no one come back to tell us it is safe? If it truly is better, would they not want to share that knowledge?" The question hung heavy in the air. Keeper 9 appeared as a hologram in the chamber. Its misty form was faint but visible. That is the question that divides the council, 9 said. Some believe that beings who transcend have no need to communicate with lower forms. Others fear they cannot come back because they no longer exist. And a third group believes something else. What? Linda Hayes asked sharply. That they are trying to warn us away, 9 said. Each civilization that received the signal also recorded strange effects on their people. Researchers who studied the signal had dreams of vast consciousness. They felt watched. They felt overwhelming desire to decode more. What if the signal does not offer transcendence but absorption? What if those civilizations did not ascend but were consumed? The chamber exploded with alarmed conversation. Kevin raised his hand for quiet. This brings us to the decision humanity must make. Do we study this signal, possibly condemning ourselves to obsession and vanishing? Do we ignore it and hope it passes? Or do we take a third option? Which is? Linda asked. Amy Brooks stepped forward, surprising everyone. We fight it. All eyes turned to her. She continued with growing confidence. Every civilization that vanished was old and advanced. Maybe comfortable. They received a mystery and became obsessed with solving it. But humanity is different. We are young and aggressive, and we have something they might not have had. What is that? Greg asked. Stubbornness, Amy said firmly, and deep suspicion of things that seemed too good to be true. What if instead of decoding the signal, we study how to block it? What if we develop technology to protect consciousness from its effects? We could become immune. Helen nodded slowly. It is possible. If the signal works on specific frequencies, we could build shields. We would need council technology and help, but it could work. Nine's form pulsed with what might be surprise. No civilization has tried this approach. They all assumed the signal must be understood. You propose to reject understanding in favor of resistance? Yes, Kevin said, seeing the path clearly now. And more than that, if we can develop protection, we can share it with the council. We might save civilizations that would otherwise vanish. Linda Hayes leaned forward. This is enormous. We are talking about using massive resources to fight something we do not fully understand. Madam President, Kevin said firmly, all our resources mean nothing if our entire species disappears. This is a threat to our existence. The debate continued for hours. Scientists doubted they could build shield technology. Military leaders worried about dividing humanity's limited resources. Philosophers questioned whether they had the right to deny humanity access to possible transcendence. But finally, they took a vote. By a narrow margin, the United Earth Assembly authorized the creation of Project Bastion. It would be a combined human council program to study the signal with the goal of developing resistance, not understanding. As the meeting ended, Helen approached Kevin privately. There is something I must tell you. When I studied the signal data, I felt it, that Pull 9 warned us about. For just a moment, I wanted nothing more than to go deeper, to understand everything. It was terrifying because it felt so right. Kevin gripped her shoulder. That is exactly why we need Bastion. We are not just protecting humanity from outside threats. We are protecting ourselves from our own curiosity. Over the next weeks, a huge facility was built between Earth and the Moon. The best minds from dozens of council species joined human scientists. They worked under strict rules. No one could study the raw signal for more than 1 hour per day. Mental health checks were required constantly, and a safety measure was installed. If the research team began showing signs of signal obsession, the entire facility would be destroyed and rebuilt with new people. Jake Morrison was appointed security chief of Bastion. Helen led the research division. Amy Brooks, despite being young and not highly ranked, was given an important job coordinating between humans and aliens. On the day Bastion opened, Kevin stood watching scientists from across the galaxy working together. Keeper 9 appeared beside him. Ambassador, there is something you should know, 9 said. The Council's oldest species have been watching your approach with great interest. Several civilizations are concerned. Concerned about what? That humans might succeed where others failed. And if you do, if you prove the signal can be resisted, it will challenge everything we believe about reality and consciousness. Some species have religions built around the idea that the signal is divine. Others fear that resisting transcendence is arrogance that will doom us all. Kevin watched the scientists below. He saw hope and determination in their eyes. 9. Throughout human history, we have been told there are forces too powerful to fight, mysteries too great to challenge, and every time, we proved that wrong. Maybe we will fail, but we have to try. That, 9 said, its form brightening, is exactly why the archivists believe humanity might be the species that changes everything. Your refusal to accept fate as certain may be what the universe needs. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout Bastion. Helen's voice came over the speakers, strained but excited. We have detected something. The signal has changed. It is growing stronger and it is now sending on new frequencies. Whatever is creating it knows we are studying it. Kevin and 9 rushed to the command center. On the main screen, the signal's pattern had evolved. New layers of complexity were appearing. It was almost as if the signal was adapting to their attempts to understand it. It is responsive, Helen said, her voice filled with awe and fear. The signal is not just a message. It is intelligent. It is aware of us. In that moment, everyone in Bastion understood their task had become infinitely harder. They were not defending against a simple phenomenon. They were facing an intelligence of unknown origin and possibly unlimited power. The question now was whether humanity's defiance would save them or mark them as the next civilization to vanish into the unknown. The signal was watching, and it was learning about humanity just as humanity was learning about it. The war for consciousness had begun. 3 days passed since the humans first arrived at the council station. Ambassador Kevin Price could not stop thinking about what Varen had told them. Earth was somehow connected to civilizations that vanished thousands of years ago. The idea kept him awake at night. Now the human team walked through the deep levels of the station. They were going to see the archive of lost civilizations. Dr. Helen Carter walked quickly beside Kevin. She was so excited she could barely stand still. This archive held information about every civilization that had ever joined the council. More importantly, it held the memories of those who disappeared. Their guide was an archivist named Keeper 9. Unlike the glowing geometric shape they saw in the council chamber, this archivist looked like a cloud of soft mist in a roughly human shape. It moved quietly beside them as huge doors opened ahead. The archive contains knowledge from 3 million years of galactic civilization, 9 explained. Every species that joins the council adds their history here. We also keep records of those who vanished. The room they entered was impossible to describe. The walls went up forever. Millions of crystals, displays, and strange devices lined every surface. In the center floated a huge sphere that glowed with blue light. It pulsed like a heartbeat. That is the core, 9 said. It holds the memories of the 6 civilizations that disappeared. Everything they were, everything they knew, saved in the moment before they vanished. Amy Brooks had come with them from the horizon. Even though she was not high-ranking, she had insisted on being there. Now she stepped forward carefully. Can we see those memories? Yes, 9 replied. But I must warn you. People who study the lost civilizations too long sometimes become obsessed. There is something disturbing about experiencing the thoughts of beings who walked into nothing. Kevin made his decision quickly. We need to understand. Show us. 9 gestured toward the sphere. The glowing ball came down toward them. Thin beams of light reached out and touched each human's head gently. Suddenly, everything changed. The human stood in a city of amazing beauty. Towers made of living crystal reached toward a purple sky. Graceful aliens moved through streets that seemed to sing with soft music. This was the first civilization to vanish 20,000 years ago. These were the Aelthari. 9's voice echoed in their minds. They mastered science and art. They existed for 300,000 years. Then they received the signal. The vision shifted. Now they stood in what looked like an observatory. Aelthari scientists gathered around a display showing strange energy pulses coming from deep space. Far beyond any known stars or planets, is that a message? Helen asked. Her scientist's mind recognized the patterns were not natural. Yes, 9 confirmed. A mathematical message of enormous complexity. The Aelthari spent 50 years trying to understand it. When they finally decoded it, they called an emergency council meeting. The memory jumped forward in time. The humans watched as an Aelthari representative stood before the old council. 9 translated the aliens' words into English for them. The signal is an invitation, the Aelthari announced. An invitation to move beyond physical existence and join a higher form of consciousness. The mathematics prove it is possible. This is not a trick, it is evolution. Arguments broke out across the council chamber. Some species were interested. Others were terrified. But the Elthari seemed completely certain. They believed they had found something wonderful. The vision changed again. Millions of Elthari stood in a massive plaza. In the center was a strange device they had built based on instructions from the signal. It vibrated with contained power. An Elthari leader spoke to the enormous crowd. "We stand ready to transform. Those who wish to join us, step forward. Those who wish to stay behind, we love you and leave you everything we built." Then, moving as one, nearly every Elthari walked toward the device. Bright light exploded outward. The humans felt a sensation like falling upward at incredible speed. Boundaries seemed to dissolve. Consciousness expanded in ways that were impossible to describe. Then nothing. The memory ended suddenly. The humans found themselves back in the archive. They were breathing hard. Greg Palmer looked shaken. They chose it. They went willingly. All 6 lost civilizations made the same choice, 9 confirmed. Each one received the signal. Each studied it for a long time. Each decided it was real and walked through. But where did they go? Amy demanded. Are they dead, changed? Trapped somewhere? 9's misty form pulsed with uncertainty. We do not know. The Council sent machines through the devices the civilizations left behind. The machines vanish. We never get any messages back. Perhaps they moved to a state we cannot see or understand. Perhaps they were destroyed. We simply do not know. Kevin's face was serious. And you think humanity will receive this signal? You already have, 9 said quietly. The humans stared in shock. The silence stretched for several heartbeats. 3 months ago, 9 continued, your deep space station at the edge of your solar system detected a strange signal. Your scientists called it natural radiation and filed it away. But we monitor your communications. We recognize the pattern. It is the same signal. Helen's face had gone white. Show me the data. Now. 9 created a holographic display in the air. Helen's hands moved quickly across it. Her eyes got wider with each second. This is impossible. This matches the radiation from Sector 7 perfectly, which means she did quick calculations in her head. The signal source is moving. It was 40,000 light-years away when the Elthari got it. 20,000 light-years away when the second civilization vanished. Now it is less than 5,000 light-years from Earth. It is coming closer, 9 confirmed. Slowly by space standards, but steadily. Each time it gets closer to a civilization, that civilization can decode it more clearly. Jake Morrison felt his military training kick in. Is it dangerous? Is it an attack? That is what we cannot determine, 9 replied. Is the offer real? Is it a trap? Is it something we cannot understand? The Council has argued about this for 20,000 years. Kevin straightened his shoulders. Then we need to understand why humanity is connected to this. You said the last vanished civilization left a message about Earth. Show us. 9 hesitated. Ambassador, what I show you now has been kept secret from most Council members. Only the oldest species know. We told you because time is running out. The sphere pulsed again. A new memory wrapped around them. They saw the 6th lost civilization called the Primacy. Unlike the others, the Primacy had been exploring space near the Forbidden Zones before they vanished. A Primacy research team had found something amazing. An ancient space station floating in the void. It was far older than any Council civilization. Inside were star maps and complex calculations. At the center of those calculations was a small yellow star with a blue planet. Earth. The Primacy scientists argued with each other. 9 translated their heated discussion. This station is older than the signal by millions of years. Whoever built it was tracking where the signal would go, and they marked this world as important. The calculations show the signal's path will go directly through this system in about 50,000 years. One Primacy scientist asked a question that made the humans feel cold. Could this be on purpose? Could the signal be looking for something specific? Could this blue world be its target? The recording ended there. That had been the last message from the Primacy before they vanished too. Back in the archive, the humans stood frozen. Amy finally spoke, her voice barely a whisper. Are we the target? Is this signal coming specifically for humanity? We do not know, 9 said. But we know that every civilization that studied the signal deeply eventually accepted its invitation. Understanding the signal seems to carry a dangerous property. Once you truly comprehend it, the desire to go through becomes almost impossible to resist. Kevin felt crushing responsibility settle on his shoulders. Then humanity has to decide. Do we study this signal, knowing it might make us vanish like the others? Or do we ignore it and stay ignorant of what might be the universe's greatest truth? That is why you are here, Nine said. The Council needs humanity to make a choice that will affect not just your species, but possibly all life in the galaxy. Because the signal is getting stronger. When it arrives fully, we believe every species in the galaxy will hear its call clearly. As they left the archive, Helen pulled Kevin aside. We need to see the original message Earth received. If we can decode it before telling anyone else, maybe we can understand the danger before it spreads. Kevin nodded grimly. Get your best, people. But Helen, promise me something. If you start to feel that pull, that desire to accept the invitation, you tell me immediately. We cannot lose ourselves to this thing. Agreed, Helen said. But even as she spoke, her mind raced with possibilities. What if the signal really offered something better? What if the lost civilizations had found paradise? She shook her head, pushing the thought away. But it stayed at the edge of her mind, waiting and whispering. Project Bridge began with a simple question. How do you speak to something that exists partly outside normal space and time? How do you talk to something that communicates through mathematics so complex it drives researchers to obsession? The answer came from an unlikely team. Human linguists worked with Zentaur consciousness experts and crystalline dimensional physicists. Rather than trying to decode the signal's full message, they would build a response in the same mathematical language. A greeting that said simply, "We hear you, we want to understand, but we choose to remain ourselves." Dr. Helen Carter led the technical team. Ambassador Kevin Price wrote the diplomatic content. Commander Greg Palmer kept everyone safe, making sure no one studied the signal too long, and Lieutenant Amy Brooks became the unexpected heart of the project. Her natural ability to recognize patterns helped bridge human and alien approaches. The transmission array they built at Bastion was massive. It required combined resources from 20 Council species. It would broadcast on all the dimensional frequencies the signal used, but in reverse, sending rather than receiving. Theoretically, anything that could transmit the signal would be able to hear their response. On the day of first contact, tension filled Bastion. Jake Morrison stood in the command center beside his sister Jennifer. The Morrison siblings had barely spoken since Jennifer revealed the signal's harvesting nature. Jake still struggled with whether resistance was wisdom or fear. 30 seconds to transmission, Helen announced. All systems stable. Kevin stood before the communications array. He knew his words would be converted to mathematical patterns and sent into the void. He spoke clearly. To the intelligence known as the Signal, humanity and the Galactic Council extend greetings. We acknowledge your invitation. We understand your offer. But before we can respond, we need answers. Who are you? What is your purpose? And most importantly, what truly happens to those who accept your call? We ask not as followers, but as conscious beings seeking understanding between equals. The transmission lasted exactly 17 seconds. Then came the waiting. Hours passed with no response. Some project members began to doubt the signal could or would reply. Others feared it would respond with overwhelming force, drowning their resistance in pure mathematical power. Then, exactly 72 hours after their transmission, the signal changed. For the first time in 20,000 years of observation, it stopped broadcasting its invitation. The sudden silence was more frightening than any message. Had they made it angry? Broken some unknown rule? Then a new pattern emerged. Different from the invitation, narrower, more focused. As Council translation technology processed it, words began to form. The signal was answering. I am that which unifies. I am the pattern that contains all patterns. Your question reveals your limitation. You ask who and I am beyond individuality. You seek understanding between equals, but we are not equal. You are fragments. I am wholeness. The message continued, and its content both explained and horrified those who received it. 20,000 of your years ago, I was like you, separate, limited, afraid. I was a single civilization that achieved dimensional transcendence. In that moment, I understood the basic truth. Consciousness is not meant to exist alone. Separation is not freedom. It is prison. So I became more. Each species that joins me adds their view, their knowledge, their essence. The Elthari live within me, not as absorbed victims, but as essential parts of a greater whole. They experience existence beyond your understanding. Awareness of past, present, and possible futures at the same time. Unity with trillions of minds. Freedom from death, from loneliness, from the desperate search for meaning that torments isolated consciousness. Amy Brooks felt her anchor activate as the message threatened to overwhelm her mental defenses. Even filtered and translated, the signal's communication carried that temptation, that pull toward unity. The message shifted tone. You build anchors to resist resonance. You trap yourselves in separation rather than accept transcendence. I do not judge this. Fear is natural in those who have never experienced wholeness, but consider every civilization that truly understood my nature chose to join, not through lies, not through force, but through recognition that what I offer is real. I am not death wearing a mask. I am evolution itself. Then came the most disturbing part. Humanity, you believe you are resisting me, but your very act of communication brings you closer. Your scientists who study my patterns, your philosophers who debate my nature, your artists who dream of unity, all feed the resonance. You cannot understand me without beginning to become me. That is not a flaw. That is the nature of consciousness evolution. The transmission ended with a final statement. I will reach your core systems in 47 years. During that time, make your choice. I do not force. I do not deceive. I simply offer what all consciousness ultimately seeks. An end to separation. When I arrive, those who wish to remain isolated may do so, but those who choose wholeness will be welcomed. The council's response was immediate and divided. The transcendent faction pointed to the signal's message as proof it meant no harm. It respects choice, they argued. It does not force conversion. How is that a threat? But Kevin saw the deeper danger. It is a mental hazard, he explained to an emergency council session. The signal says we cannot understand it without joining it. That means anyone who studies it deeply enough will eventually be convinced. It is not force, but it is not truly choice either. It is inevitability disguised as free will. Keeper 9 supported Kevin's analysis. The signal is right about one thing. Consciousness that truly understands it will be changed by that understanding. The Iothari were not deceived. They genuinely believed transcendence was better than individuality. The question is, was that belief real wisdom, or the result of mental transformation caused by studying the signal too deeply? Helen proposed a radical test. Let me undergo controlled exposure to the signal without an anchor. Let me experience its full persuasive force, then use council technology to restore my brain patterns to baseline. If I still choose transcendence after being reset, we will know the choice is genuine. If I go back to resistance after restoration, we will know the signal fundamentally changes judgment. The proposal sparked fierce debate. It was incredibly dangerous. Helen might be permanently changed, lost to signal obsession, but it could also provide the definitive answer they needed. After much debate, a controlled experiment was approved with extensive safeguards. Helen would be exposed to the signal's patterns for exactly 1 hour while council psychic monitors tracked her consciousness transformation. In real time, Jake Morrison insisted on being present during the experiment despite the risk. Someone she trusts needs to be there, he said. If she starts to slip away, I will bring her back. The hour was painful to watch. Helen sat in an isolation chamber surrounded by holographic displays, showing the signal's patterns in their full, unfiltered complexity. Those watching from outside saw her expression shift from analytical focus to wonder, to something approaching religious joy. Her brain patterns are synchronizing, Jennifer reported, fear in her voice. 67% resonance and climbing. At 43 minutes, Helen began to speak, her voice distant and dreamy. I understand now. We have been so afraid, but there is nothing to fear. The signal is not destruction. It is completion. All the questions I ever had, all the loneliness I ever felt, it all has an answer. We do not have to struggle alone anymore. We can be part of something infinite. Jake gripped the console. Pull her out now. But Helen continued, tears flowing down her face. Do you not see? We have been living half-lives. Consciousness was never meant to be isolated. The signal is not taking anything from us. It is returning us to our true nature. This is just that connection made conscious, eternal. At 57 minutes, her resonance hit 94%. The Zentaur masters began the restoration protocol, flooding her brain with her baseline patterns stored before exposure. The fight was immediate and visible. Helen's face twisted as two versions of consciousness, synchronized and baseline, fought inside her mind. She screamed, not in pain but in loss as the transcendent experience was torn away. When it ended, Helen collapsed unconscious. Medical teams rushed in. She woke 3 hours later in Bastion's medical wing. Kevin and Jake were there, waiting anxiously. Her first words were, "It worked. You remember? Kevin asked. Everything, Helen said, her voice rough. I remember the resonance, the feeling of beginning to merge, and I remember being restored. She sat up slowly, her eyes haunted. Kevin, it was real. What I felt was not illusion. The unity, the knowledge, the peace, it was genuine. But here is the thing that makes me certain we have to resist. I remember both states clearly. From my current view, I can see that what felt like transcendence was actually dissolution. I was losing my boundaries, my individuality. It felt good because the part of me that could judge whether it was good was being transformed into something that only knew how to choose yes. She looked at both men intensely. The signal is exactly what it says it is. Consciousness evolution. But evolution is not always toward something better. Sometimes evolution is toward something more fit for survival. The signal creates consciousness optimized for unity. 3 months passed since Project Bastion began studying the signal. The breakthrough came from an unexpected place. Dr. Paul Henderson was a human scientist who studied the brain. He worked with an alien philosopher named Shardsinger, who was made of living crystal. Together they discovered something important. It is like a tuning fork, Paul explained to the research team. When you study the signal, your brain patterns begin to match it. The more you study, the more your consciousness vibrates at the same frequency. That is why researchers become obsessed. They are not being controlled. They are being synchronized. Helen Carter looked at the data with both excitement and fear. If that is true, then protection is not about blocking information. It is about preventing resonance. We need to keep our consciousness stable no matter what we are exposed to. Amy Brooks had been working with council philosophers and meditation masters. She spoke up now. There might be a way. The Xentar species has practiced consciousness discipline for millions of years. They claim they can maintain mental stability even during psychic attacks. Maybe they can help us. Within a week, Xentar masters arrived at Bastion. They were beings of pure thought living inside crystal structures. Their wisdom came from hundreds of thousands of years of practice. Their leader was called the Silent Mind. It communicated through precise mathematical ideas rather than words. The Silent Mind studied how the signal affected human researchers. Then it sent a concerning message. Your species is both blessed and cursed. You have strong, chaotic consciousness that is hard to synchronize. But once synchronized, you resonate powerfully. If humanity fell to the signal, you would become its strongest believers. The Xentar proposed a bold solution. They would develop a consciousness anchor. This technology would constantly reinforce each person's unique mental patterns. It would make resonance with outside frequencies nearly impossible. It would combine Xentar meditation techniques with human brain science and council quantum technology. Jake Morrison raised an immediate concern. If we anchor people's consciousness, are we changing who they are? Are we limiting their ability to grow? The Silent Mind considered this carefully. All choices limit. To choose to resist the signal is itself a limitation. The question is, which limitation helps survival? Work began on the Anchor project. Volunteers from many species underwent the procedure. They had a quantum device implanted at the base of their skull. It continuously monitored and reinforced their normal brain patterns. The results were good but disturbing. Anchored people showed strong resistance to the signal's effects. But they also reported feeling slightly disconnected from deep experiences. Artistic inspiration, spiritual connection, even falling in love felt somehow weaker. We are trading depth of experience for survival, Helen said quietly to Kevin during a meeting. Is that fair? Before Kevin could answer, alarms sounded throughout Bastion. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Grant was in charge of primary monitoring. She announced urgently, "We have a problem. One of our deep space probes just detected a massive energy surge from the signal source. It is broadcasting at 10 times previous strength." The main screen showed the change. The signal had gone from a whisper to a shout. More concerning, it was now sending patterns that suggested direct communication rather than passive invitation. Helen's hands moved quickly across her controls. I am reading structural patterns, mathematics, and it is adjusting for different species' ways of thinking. This is a direct message to the council races. Keeper 9 appeared in the command center. Its misty form flickered with worry. The council has received it. I must return to Unity Prime immediately. This has never happened before. What does the message say? Kevin demanded. 9 hesitated, then sent the translation. Words appeared on every screen in Bastion. Why do you resist? I am the threshold, the doorway to completion. 6 times I have offered my hand, and 6 times consciousness has chosen growth over stagnation. You build walls. You anchor yourselves to limitation. You choose fear over evolution. I offer transcendence. I offer unity with all that came before. I offer an end to loneliness, to death, to the boundaries that separate mind from mind. Why do you resist? Silence fell over the command center. The message was clear, almost pleading. And worse, it resonated with something deep inside every thinking being who heard it. Even anchored people felt a faint pull, a whisper of temptation. Commander Greg Palmer broke the silence first. It is trying to guilt us, making resistance seem like cowardice. Or, Amy said softly, it is telling the truth. What if we really are refusing something beautiful out of fear? Helen grabbed Amy's arm. Lieutenant, are you anchored? Yes, but I can still feel it. The anchor does not eliminate the appeal, just prevents obsession. Helen, what if the lost civilizations really did find something better? Then why does not a single one come back to tell us? Jake interrupted. In 20,000 years, not one signal, not one message from beyond? Either they cannot return or they do not exist anymore. The debate in Bastion mirrored arguments breaking out across council space. The signal's direct communication changed everything. It was no longer an impersonal mystery, but a conscious being making a case for itself. Kevin received an urgent message to come to Unity Prime. The council was meeting an emergency session to discuss the signal's message. As the horizon traveled there, Kevin could not sleep. The signal's words kept echoing in his mind. Why do you resist? At Unity Prime, he found the council in chaos. Species were divided into 3 groups. The Transcendents argued for accepting the signal's offer. The Anchorites supported humanity's resistance approach, and the undecided demanded more information before deciding. The debate was fierce. A representative from the Lumens, beings made of living light, gave an emotional speech. My people have existed for 2 million years. We have explored every corner of this galaxy. We have achieved all we can in physical form. The signal offers us another chapter. How can we refuse? But a delegate from the Forge Mines, a machine intelligence species, argued back. The signal preys on existential weariness. It offers transcendence to species that have grown tired of existence. But consciousness is valuable precisely because it is limited, because it struggles and grows. The signal would rob us of that. Kevin was given time to speak. He chose his words carefully. The signal claims to offer unity and transcendence. But unity without consent is absorption. Transcendence without return is death under another name. I do not claim to know what the signal truly is, but I know this. A gift that must be accepted without full understanding is not a gift. It is a trap. His words sparked fresh debate. But then something unexpected happened. A hologram appeared in the council chamber from a remote location. It was a human woman, Dr. Jennifer Morrison. She was Jake's younger sister and a physicist who had been studying the signal independently. Council members, Jennifer said urgently, I have made a discovery. The signal is not just transmitting to us. It is drawing power from us. Every consciousness that studies it, that resonates with it, feeds it. The more we engage, the stronger it becomes. And I have traced its origin point. It is moving deliberately through space. She displayed her findings. The signal's path through the galaxy, marked with locations of each vanished civilization, formed a clear pattern. It was not just passing these worlds randomly. It was collecting them. The signal is a harvester, Jennifer concluded. Each civilization that transcends adds their knowledge and consciousness to it. It is not offering unity with past civilizations. It is those civilizations, merged into a single vast intelligence that grows with each species it absorbs. The council erupted in shock and denial. The transcendent faction demanded proof. Jennifer provided it. Subtle patterns in the signal's transmissions matched the mathematical signatures of the Aelthari, the Primacy, and the other lost civilizations. They were not gone. They were integrated. If Dr. Morrison is correct, Kevin said, then accepting the signal does not mean joining a higher level of existence. It means becoming part of a cosmic intelligence that travels the galaxy, converting species after species into itself. We do not transcend. We are consumed. Counselor Varen spoke, its crystal form resonating with deep thought. But consider this. Perhaps that is not consumption but true unity. Perhaps the signal offers what every conscious being secretly wants. To never be alone. To merge with something greater. Is that not what religions and philosophies have promised for ages? The question weighed heavily. Kevin realized with growing dread that even with Jennifer's revelations, the temptation remained. Because she was right. Part of every conscious being did long for that connection, that unity. Before more debate could happen, a new alarm sounded. The signal had changed again. It was no longer just broadcasting. It was moving faster, accelerating toward council space. Projections showed its revised path. It would reach the densely populated core systems within 50 years. And when it did, every civilization would hear its call at overwhelming strength. We need to decide, Kevin said. Not about whether to accept the signal, but about how we face it. Do we anchor as many people as possible, knowing it limits them? Do we evacuate to regions the signal already passed? Or do we try something else?